iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
Diane, thank you so much for joining iHeartRadio Broadway today.
I am so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So we are almost a year to the anniversary date of the Broadway shutdown. So I've been checking in with everyone who's been coming on to talk to me with the station. How are you doing? How has this year been for you? And what are we looking forward to right now?
It's been a marathon, I think, is more than anything. And that's what's been so exhausting about this disruption to the theater industry and let alone our lives and the world. I think I also run, as you may know, a theater. I run the American Repertory Theater at Harvard University. So being the leader of an institution and trying to navigate planning when it literally feels like you're leading through the fog and you can't see a few feet in front of your face. That's been, I think, the hardest challenge is not knowing, things changing, feeling like you've got to adapt and be flexible. And I think what we've learned through this pandemic is how we also have to understand that we can't have expectations the way we used to about how much people can handle right now. This has been a time of intense stress, personally, health-wise for so many folks. We've had an enormous reckoning with racial and equity issues in our country that are needing to stop us and have everybody think and look and interrogate yourself and the way you conduct your life and institutions and industries. So it's been an intense year of disruption, but I think an intense year of learning. And in that spirit of picking yourself up every day and asking oneself, how can I continue to learn? How can I continue to broaden and deepen my commitments to the values that I want to live by? I think those are the things that have been in the foreground.
And with Broadway hopefully coming back within the next, 6 to 9 months, let's say, with there not being a date set for our return, what changes do you want to see when Broadway reopens? What is, we've all taken this year to reflect and to grow and to learn, but what do you want to see potentially change when we come back?
I think there's no question that we can't go back to business as usual. And that would be the greatest loss is if we went through this disruption and this time and this reckoning and then found ourselves too busy to apply any of the things we've thought about or learned or have said are actually where the industry needs to focus. So for me, I think they've been incredible organizations that have launched and formed that are dedicating themselves to equity issues, to representation on Broadway. They've been really important conversations that have had that have deliverables, I think. I think the We See You White American Theater demands were so comprehensive and need to be taken into practice now. Something that we're doing at the ART is centering anti-racism and really applying how we can center anti-racism in a way that will actually translate into policy change, culture shifts. And so that's up and down the line. That's how we work on stage. It's how we work backstage. It's who is working and are we representing the world in the way we want to represent it, not just on stage, but behind the scenes. I think it's going to be a long change. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. And actually, at ART, we're working with an incredible woman who's dedicated her life to equity issues named Lisa Yancey of Yancey Consulting. And I love something she says. She says, we really shouldn't be focused on change, because anything that can change back. We're focused on transformation.
Oh, I love that.
What can we do that is truly transformative?
Mm-hmm.
And something she always asks us in the work she's doing with us at the ART is continually asking yourself the question, why am I doing this work? Why am I here? Why am I showing up? Why? You have to really understand that, and not just check a box and do some implicit bias training and say, okay, we're done. This is a long haul transformational shift that is long overdue, and it's going to require commitment every day, forever. I mean, that's the way it works. And it's also future thinking. It's not what we see right now in the field,
Mm-hmm.
in the theater, and let alone the theater, society at large. So how are we going to come together in the theater as an industry and shift our policy, shift our practice, shift our lens, shift how we work, so we can actually start to make that transformation happen from inside the theater?
And with that being said, you are the leader of one of the most wonderful productions on Broadway, Jagged Little Pill, one of the most inclusive shows, touches on a lot of issues, and your cast has been very visible during the pandemic. You all had your concert, the virtual show that you did in December, and this Saturday, March 6th, you all are doing an encore presentation for that concert. Why was it important for you all to do the concert in December and to actively come together as a cast to perform and to give back to various communities and various organizations?
I think all the work that our company has done, the entire cast and creative sort of engine at Jagged Little Pill in this pandemic, has been a natural extension of the DNA of the show. Our show is a show that is really confronting what it means to be alive today in America. It's not afraid of going into the complexity of many intersectional issues. The one thing I joke about with my colleagues on the team is, at least we don't have a pandemic in our show, right? Maybe we have to add that in. No, we won't do that. But that's been the DNA of our show. So the cast of our production have been deep inside many, many issues as part of the creation process, whether that's gender and identity issues, or sexual assault, or transracial adoption, opioid addiction. So we have, as part of our muscle of creating the show, been deep inside the responsibility to do storytelling in a way that has integrity and social impact, working with organizations on our impact board for our production, who have guided us, advised us, come into the rehearsal process to talk to the cast. So that whole process, I think, has made our show feel more than just a show, more than just, a story with choreography and staging and Broadway. There's a mission for the show. And so I think when the pandemic hit, the idea that mission could stay alive, that the company could stay in touch with each other, that the company continued to stay very active, whether that was volunteering at voting sites, phone banks, doing fundraising for all the causes that were supporting those who were suffering the most during this pandemic time. So that community feeling of what it means to be socially responsible and active, I think, was a natural extension of our show.
What can fans expect to see during the live stream concert?
So first of all, the opportunity to be together as a cast last December and do this was such an overwhelmingly emotional event. We did it following full health and safety union protocols. It was the first time that I was like out directing an event like that. So it was nerve-wracking, but wow, when we got together and we were able to be in the room and touch the show again, um, it was so soul nourishing and inspiring. And what we did is we wanted to obviously, first of all, touch all the music in the show, but give audiences a taste of the story. And I thought it would be great for the actors to really reflect both personally about their own personal relationship to their character in the story. So the concert gives you this journey through the arc of the show, but it really also gets you to have a sneak peek of the actors and their process and how they've connected to this material. So it's the story itself, and it's also a great preview, kind of sneak peek of behind the scenes of the show as well.
And then was this your first opportunity directing during COVID, being actually in a physical space with cast members?
It was the first time I directed with the cast in an indoor setting. The other amazing event we did was we recorded 2 numbers for the NBC Prime TV special.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big fundraiser for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. And so for that, I got to stage You Learn and You Ought to Know outdoors. That was like making a music video. That was super fun. That was also fast and furious, and it was raining, and we only had like 5 minutes to do it when we actually went out on the street. But that was thrilling, was to do all that prep and then stage it on the street and embrace that sort of urban street environment into the concept for the numbers. So all these activities and have kept us connected as a company, and I think that's meant so much that we've felt like we could stay creative, we could touch the show, we could touch the themes of the show, and continue to make different versions of this material that we could share with audience and kind of give to the world.
And the show is Saturday, March 6th at 7 p.m. on stellartickets.com. It's the reunion concert that took place in December. I watched it. It's an amazing concert. Tickets are free, but you are going to be asked to donate to various organizations. Those charitable organizations include RAIN, Learn to Cope, GLAD, Color of Change, and all amazing charitable organizations that do so much good work in the world right now. I want to talk about your cast because I know that you've worked with some of the most talented people on Broadway, in theater in general, across the world, but this cast is pretty special. And do you still kind of pinch yourself that this is the cast of Jagged Little Pill when you get to see them perform at various opportunities?
I adore this cast. I love all the casts I work with, I have to tell you that. But there was something about this cast. We've been on this journey together for so many years, from when we created this up at the ART, our journey to Broadway, continuing to work on the show, continue to deepen the story, working with the cast in a really creative way. So it feels like we're a company. It feels like we're our own little theater company. And so for me, the joy of seeing actors grow in their craft, to grow in their journey in life, and then to be able to put all of that into the show, that's been the particular joy of Jagged Little Pill. I met Celia when she was 17, and I saw a video of her doing a song in her high school. And I looked at this video and I was like, that's our Frankie. And here we are, many years later. She came to ART. She had to take a weekend off to go graduate from high school. She's now, lived more, gone to college, made her Broadway debut, got a Tony nomination, on her way. And just to take that journey with Celia from this being her first professional job to where she is now, and being in conversation with her about this character and who Frankie is, and seeing all the things that are going on in our world and everything that is so meaningful to Celia, and letting that channel back into the character. I've talked with her about what it's going to be like when we get back together again to relaunch Broadway, and how we can make space, how I want to make space as the director for everything that she's learned in this year of disruption and pandemic learning, how that can inform and deepen the show when we actually get to be back and open again on Broadway.
And to take an album like Jagged Little Pill, and I asked you this at opening night too, but to take an album that meant so much to a generation. I mean, I grew up on Jagged Little Pill, the album. What has been the best part of the feedback from the audience members or from social media? What has been the rewarding factor of hearing how this musical has really helped people in some capacity?
I loved this music from the 90s. I was a super fan of Alanis and this album. So I knew there would be meaning to a huge audience out there that wants to be in the presence of this incredible music. What I'm so excited about with our show is that Alanis so generously introduced us into like the depths of what matters to her, not only in Jagged Little Pill, which she wrote when she was young, but what matters to her now. And that process, I think, illuminated for Diablo Cody, for myself, for Sidi Larbi Chikawi, our choreographer, for Tom Kitt, the values of the show, you know, and wanting to really present life in all its complexity, in all its mess, so that an audience can come to it and say, you know, I feel those things too. I feel the pressures. I feel that the suffering that we go through, the traumas that we endure, that we hide, that we swallow, that we deny exist. And that somehow through this story, an audience has the ability to see, you know, one family, one community deal with sexual assault, deal with trauma. What happens when you push it down and you don't let it out, you don't let it heal, you don't let it process. And so for me, this gets to the very roots of theater, right? The role of theater is to allow an audience to come in a ritual sense and live through something,
right?
So that you connect, that you empathize, that you understand, that you feel, you don't feel alone. You know, for me, that has been so moving, is to see audiences. And to answer your question, to me, it's been the spectrum of audience. It's been young people who really never knew who Alanis was, to people from my generation and like you who grew up on the album, you know, to people in their 80s who I would have thought, well, maybe Jagged Little Pill is not going to be the musical for them, but, you know, parents have brought their grandparents and they look at it and recognize themselves and their lives or family inside of it. So I think, you know, with grace to kind of give a compassionate understanding of, you know, what we go through as human beings, and not to shy away from the tough stuff, right? But to understand that it's all this process. It's all a process of living and learning, you know, which is the mantra of our final song in our show, You Live, You Learn.
And moving a little bit away from Jagged Little Pill, you know, I know that we're still talking about a Broadway shutdown and all that, but you have a couple projects that are in the works, including 1776 with Roundabout Theater Company. Is that still slated for the upcoming season? And is there any sort of information and some little tidbits you can give us about 1776?
Yeah, you know, I was supposed to go into rehearsal in the first week of April, which is really when the pandemic had just shut down. We are 100% on track with 1776. And similarly with that cast, we have stayed in touch. We have continued to deepen our relationship to this piece of American history. I actually think 1776 as a date and the Declaration of Independence as a subject matter and the founding of the country has been in the press in the last year. I'm not talking about the musical, but I'm talking about what was this moment when America was founded, who was there and who was not there. And what did we mean when we said all men are created equal, and who was left out, and what were the aspirations of the founding fathers, and what were the compromises, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like all that's happened in America in the last year has fed into the show. I'm now co-directing it with my choreographer, Jeffrey Page. I've asked him to be my co-director on it. And we've really been in touch about how to continue to make this musical revival really be in conversation with the world today and all the issues we're facing today. So we are hard at work on it. It will premiere at the ART and then come to Broadway at the Roundabout Theater.
I'm so excited for it. 1776 is actually one of my favorite shows, so I'm really excited to see this cast specifically and the way it's going to be transformed for a modern audience. I'm really excited for it.
Great. I am too. And I should say it's an incredible cast, like the Jagged Little Pill cast, and a cast that represents a multiplicity of race, gender, and ethnicity, which is the world we're living in today.
Absolutely. And one of the last questions, this interview is going to air during Women's History Month, which is March. International Women's Week is next week for us. Are there women in the industry that you have looked up to, that mentorship or anything along those lines that have meant the world to you being in the Broadway industry?
Absolutely. I feel so passionately that as a woman in this field, I had role models to look up to that I could see, and they were paving the way. And they range from directors, producers. One of my greatest mentors is, and I studied with, is Anne Bogart, and also admired the work when I was a young director of Joanna Colitis, Julie Taymor, that we were all doing work actually at the ART when I was an undergrad at Harvard then. Incredible producers like the late, great Lynn Austin, who founded Music Theater Group, who gave me my first job directing a reading for the Music Theater Group. She was such a pioneer. I had the incredible fortune of working with Emily Mann recently on our production of Gloria, A Life. And, Emily paved the way for, women directing. Emily was told she couldn't be a director. She was told maybe go work in the children's theater. And because Emily paved the way, it allowed my generation to say, okay, we can be directors.
I have to say, watching the women of Broadway collectively get bigger and have more exposure and just go on this journey of greatness has been, as a woman, so amazing to watch. And I thank you for also being a part of that journey too, because it's a hard industry to be in, and we all have to support each other in one way or another. So I thank you for that.
Well, thank you for saying that. I think the role of the theater is to reflect the world we live in. And I've always felt there are women that are at the top of their field, whether that's directing, choreography, composing, book writing, lyrics. So the job and the responsibility of the theater to reflect that talent, to embrace what exists. And that must include Black, Indigenous, people of color in all these leadership roles. The centering of BIPOC voices is necessary and also long overdue.
Absolutely.
So the intersectionality of all of that is where the theater needs to live.
Absolutely. And with that said, the Jagged Little Pill reunion concert is going to take place, the Encore airing, Saturday, March 6th at 7 p.m. StellarTickets.com. It's a free concert, but please consider donating to one of the amazing charitable organizations, RAIN, Learn to Cope, GLAD, and Color of Change. Diane, Paulus, thank you so much for joining iHeartRadio Broadway today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.